at 4:08, 9/9/25. I can do roll call.
Yeah, so we've got members Lucina, Barrage, and Memberto, and we have Kirk from Fishbeck and Ed Bradford, the administrator, in attendance.
So at this time, Brownfield Redevelopment Authority can act to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Okay. Public comments.
But you gotta just say all in favor.
Oh, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
He needs to lead me through it. I don't usually do these. I'm usually the one egging people on. Okay, so at this time, I'll ask if there's any public comments on the agenda items. Seeing no public. We'll move on. Correspondence. Is there any correspondence to be received or included in the record?
There has not been any.
Public hearing, none. Move on to approval of minutes at this time. Brownfield Redevelopment Authority. Ooh,
Scroll?
Yep.
No.
yeah,
Okay.
he has to. At this time, the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority can act to approve the June 19th, 2025 minutes. I'll take a motion.
I move to approve the minutes of June 19th.
I'll second.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Financial reports, invoices.
Okay, so I included the invoices from in the packet and also the financial statements. So if you look at the balance sheet as of August 31st, this is fluctuates depending on how tax collections are coming in and when distributions are made out on the plan, but we have a fund equity, so to speak, of about 40,000, and that's basically comprised of application fees and administration fees that we collect from the Brownfield plans. If you look at the revenue and expenditure statement, we have about $3,850 of expenditures since July 1. The bulk of that was for the city attorney to prepare the development agreement or review the development agreement. I wrote a large part of it for the Gateway project. And since that was his first one, I think he took an extra long look at it and we made a few changes back and forth. Printing and publishing would be noticed as a public hearing for the Gateway Brownfield plan. And if you look at the invoices, those are the two expenses that are reflected on here. So I don't know if there's any questions about either of those or not.
I have none.
We just probably need a motion to accept them.
I'll take a motion to accept the financial statements
I'll make a motion.
I will second it.
and invoices. All those in favor say aye.
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 All right, on to old business. There's none there. New business.
New business. The Gateway Redevelopment Act 381 work plan. Just read this into the record. Fishbeck has prepared the Act 381 work plan for the Gateway Redevelopment Project. This document is required by the Act, must be submitted to Eagle Environmental Costs and the MEDC, Michigan Strategic Fund, non-environmental costs for their approval. It does not require City Council approval. The Act 381 work plan must be prepared in accordance with state guidelines and addresses several areas, including but not limited to introduction, proposed redevelopment and future use for each eligible property information, historical use and previous ownership of each eligible property, current use of each eligible property, site conditions and known environmental contamination summary, functionally obsolete, blighted and or historic conditions, information required by section 1512 of the statute, scope of work and costs, Eagle eligible activities, MSF eligible activities, MSHDA, MISHDA eligible activities, local only eligible activities, eligible activities, costs, and schedule. At this time, the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority can act to approve the 381 work plan, the Act 381 work plan for the Gateway Redevelopment Project, and allow the Brownfield Administrator to make non-substantive administrative adjustments after receiving additional information from and final review by the developer prior to submission to the state.
Okay, so after the Brownfield plan and the development and reimbursement agreements are approved, the next step in the process is the Act 381 work plan, because the state still has to approve the tax capture of state taxes, which would be the school operating taxes and the state education tax. And this document in this project is very lengthy. It was over 700 pages. Now, a lot of that was the environmental reports at the end. The 381 work plan itself is only a fraction of that, you know, including the exhibits and what have you. Fishbeck prepared that on behalf of the city. They are our consultant. TF Taxiatis, on behalf of Little River Holdings, did not get a chance to fully review the plan because of his schedule prior to it coming in front of here, and he did have a few minor changes, so I wanted to word the resolution to approve that this way so we didn't have to come back to this board to approve it. He provided some input today earlier. There's nothing substantive, it's just more elaboration on some of the descriptive things, so I think that's all fine from what I could tell. And I'll work with Kirk and with T to make sure we've got everything buttoned up with that. But once it's final and we approve, and it's approved and we finalize that, then we submit that to the state, and then the state begins their review process, and there'll probably be some back and forth with that potentially. But what I thought we could do is just kind of run through the Act 381 work plan, and I'm going to let...
700 pages, Ed?
No, not all 700 pages.
So,
Let me pull it up on the screen here.
and while you do that, too, so when you do the Brownfield plan, the Brownfield plan itself is kind of what I consider the umbrella. So it covers all of the activities, but not the same level of detail. When we get into the Act 381 work plan, that's where our regulators like EGLE and MEDC will really look at the details. So the bulk of that 700 is actually the vapor mitigation plan that EGLE requires to look at. So we have to include it as an appendice, but it makes the document structured. So like I said, the bulk of it is not anything we really need to talk about. I can say that.
Yeah, but it won't
Podium.
work very well.
I don't have to. I'm good at that though.
So I've got the Act 381 work plan up on the screen, and I think we should just, briefly run through it. It does mirror the Brownfield plan in a lot of respects. It also includes the Brownfield plan and the development and reimbursement agreement as the appendices amongst a bunch of other things. But Kirk, maybe you could just kind of walk through the sections and kind of what the state's looking for.
Yeah, so if you kind of just want to scroll through as we talk, like I mentioned, it's really, it adds more detail to the Brownfield plan. So the first part, proposed redevelopment, that's almost a carbon copy of what we had in the Brownfield plan, which is kind of the two-phase development we have here at the Gateway. Phase 1 is going to be everything south side. That's going to be the parking ramp, condos, commercial redevelopment, and then the north side is where the condo hotel is going to be. So in the Act 381 work plan, we have to include details on both, although they're not going to be conducted at the same time. So this just kind of breaks down a little bit what the two different phases are in the redevelopment.
Thank you.
Yeah. But yeah, in a nutshell, it talks about basically south side of the street is going to be phase 1, north side is going to be phase 2, and then the city's component, fixing the infrastructure between the two, will be part of phase 1. The next couple sections just talk more specifically about the parcels that are included. So when we do the Brownfield plans, eligible activities have to be conducted on eligible property. So this is basically stating that all the parcels in phase 1 and phase 2 are eligible for activities. And this just gives their legal descriptions that we pull off the website. Some of this stuff is more making sure there's no delinquent tax. Obviously, we're doing tax capture, so if they haven't paid their taxes or they have penalties, that goes against them. So it's more of a checkbox that our regulators look for. We get into section 1.3, we start talking about the historical uses of the property. This kind of goes back when they acquired them, the phase 1 environmental site assessments kind of broke down that history. So we took a little bit from that and kind of summarized it briefly here in relation to the parcels. Previous ownership, this is a section that I think we will work with T to edit. This is one thing that I was able to piece together at the last minute, but I do want to get T's input on the prior ownership, just to make sure this is accurate, but this is really just showing who owned it before them. Current use, pretty simple, nothing right now. 1.5 kind of gets into the reason the site's contaminated, and this, because we're talking about eligible properties, we're going parcel by parcel. And kind of, we lumped like 284, 294. That's one kind of group together, so we did the environmental together, MC&E did. So we kind of summarized what the main contaminants are, what media, soil, groundwater, soil, gas, and all of this whole section 1.5 leads into the environmental costs that Eagle is going to help contribute state taxes for. So we can talk, and this basically goes to the history, what caused the contamination, and what we know about it. It's kind of a brief summary of the totality of the environmental information we know. These properties, our properties are considered eligible because they're contaminated. The other way that properties are eligible are functionally obsolete, blighted, historic resources. We saw that when we went into the Arthur project. That one was blighted, I believe.
Yeah, and functionally
One or two.
obsolete both, I think.
Yeah. So that just has a different eligibility for it, but these are not because there's nothing there. So, but we are qualified because of the contamination. 1.7 is an interesting section. I will be completely honest. It's more stating. It's kind of a question saying you gave us all these costs. Is this going to be enough money to finish the development? I think is what they're asking for us, and obviously for those who prepare it, the answer is yes. So we just glorify it and say yes. We talked with contractors. We talked with everybody involved. This is going to be enough money to see the project go forward. I think the back end of it is they don't want to see people just apply, but not really think about what they need and have to come back later. But this whole 1 point section is a good way for us to explain why the project's good. So.
And just to kind of elaborate on that, I mean, the state has to approve the capture of the state taxes. It's not a local only plan. We're not just relying on local taxes. The bulk of the revenues come from the school operating tax and the SAT. So we have to convince Eagle and we have to convince MEDC that this project is worthy. And so that's why we try to put as much detail and information in there as possible. I mean, the state's well aware of this project. It's been in the hopper for 5-6 years now. And they're kind of chomping at the bit to actually get this so they can kind of start that, because this is just one of those, steps in that long process that we talked about, putting everything together, but it's one step closer. So, yeah.
Yeah, and MEDC and Eagle, they look for investment, they look for job growth, and this one, luckily, we have both. We have them in spades. So we highlight that. Those are kind of, I think too, like Ed mentioned, we're using school taxes to increase school taxes. So they want to always have that argument of, is the project worth using the school taxes for? And this one it is. We created tax base, huge amount of tax base, job creation, really redevelopment. You can kind of, when you read it, the whole Act 301 work plan is talking about how this is creating kind of a gateway into the city. And when you add all those factors together, it's kind of, we're making that almost political argument for why they should do it. So
I had a question, and it has nothing to do with the actual application of it, but those 110 FTEs, that include construction?
No, I don't think that includes construction, because typically we
Really?
include those as
Okay.
temporary
And
construction.
T, I think in his edits that I looked at briefly, knocked that down to 95.
Okay.
So I don't know what's changed there, but I think they, like I said, he has a few little edits in this section just to kind of clarify some stuff, but it's still a lot of jobs. It's very significant.
A lot.
Yeah, I think a big chunk is the condo hotel, and then I think they're planning on the commercial businesses too.
Yeah, there's a few little storefronts and stuff there,
Yeah.
so, that's a art as much as it is a science though, too. I mean, so it's,
100%. But yeah, we got that from the developer.
Okay.
That's not a number the city and myself are comfortable creating, so we kind of rely on the developer.
Yeah, I was just curious if it included.
Yeah, no, the way we're
Construction.
posturing this is, construction jobs, we just consider temporary construction jobs. Yep. Yeah, 90 million investment, huge investment. Probably one of the bigger ones in the city at this point. So you can, as you read through, we kind of build up this argument of why it's so good, and then we talk about why we need it. So we're kind of turning that corner now in terms of all the base. We've built that argument, and now we're getting into okay, now what is it gonna cost to build the project? And that's the next few sections here. You know, obviously, we talk about this project also received Eagle funding from $1 million grant and $800,000 loan. So Eagle is, like Ed mentioned, is well aware of the project already too. And what we do here now is, it's really the meat and potatoes of the Act 381 work plan is. This is where Eagle, in particular, will, so department-specific activities are Eagle approved. Those are gonna be all of our environmental activities. So they're gonna be looking at all these sections to make sure that the costs we're projecting and the documents we're providing match and they're accurate. And this is where a bulk of what you're seeing in that appendice is the vapor mitigation system design. That's probably a 500-page document. But Eagle has to review that, and they've already reviewed it one time, but they still want to see it. So really what we do when we craft this section is we work with the developer, we get all of their costs, and then we kind of start putting them in the approvable buckets that Eagle has as department specific. So excavation disposal, underground storage tank removal, engineering controls. We kind of split them out so it's easier for them to see. And then all these costs match our table 1 and also the summary table later in the document. So we can go through activities if you want to, Ed, but it's more just,
Yeah, I mean, I think.
there's a lot.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is when they do the record keeping as the project's being constructed, they have to make sure that they're tracking these in the same type of buckets that the plan lays out, and that's a large amount of what T, is gonna be assisting Little River Holdings with, assuming he continues to stay on the project for that. Because it's really important, and Fishbeck is gonna assist the city in reviewing that as those pay requests come in down the road to make sure that everything is appropriate, because that's subject to audit. The state can come in and look at that, and we wanna make sure that that's all neatly done.
Yeah, and that's why we work so closely with the development team as we're putting this together, because to help that back end, because your group, the BRA is going to be seeing all these reimbursement requests come in that the developer puts together, Ed and I review, and they're going to mirror each of these sections in theory, which is,
Yeah.
and that's why we spend so much time on this plan, to make it easier for you guys to track it on the back.
Because this board has to approve those costs as they submit them, periodically. And then once you approve them, then it just is an administrative function to get those paid out per the development agreement. But in terms of the initial approval, the BRA has to approve that. Megan said she's on her way. I think she's going to miss the vast majority of this conversation, but that's all right.
And now we're getting into MEDC. So MEDC approves all non-environmental activities. That's kind of how we split the two of them. So this is where we're talking about demolition. Now, what's interesting about this section here is our demolition activities actually occurred back in 2021. So when we had the original Eagle grant and loan, the demo covered a lot of the costs. There was an omission by one of the consultants earlier on in one of the work plans, so some of those activities didn't get included in the grant loan at the time. So the demo and the abatement are kind of reimbursing the development team from older costs. So that's why if you see demo, obviously that's already been done, but those are holdover costs. Everything else moving forward, kind of starting at 2.2.4, are new activities. So the easiest way to kind of talk about the infrastructure is we have the city of Manistee's bucket and we have the development bucket. So what's nice about these brownfield plans is that the city is able to be reimbursed for their public infrastructure that supports this activity. So River Street needs to get repaved. I don't think we're putting in snow melt, but we're not upgrading utilities, correct? Just
Not upgrading what?
utilities.
There are some utilities.
Some.
We're not repaving all of River Street, only that first block.
Yeah, so it's the first block on River and then down.
Up Division Street, or to the south on Division, then on Lake Street as well.
So the city's
so-
benefiting because they can update that infrastructure and get reimbursed. And I believe we have the development and the developer and the city getting reimbursed at the same time period too. So the developer, one isn't getting reimbursed before the other. So they're both getting reimbursed at the same time. So the city has all the infrastructure within River and Division, and then the development team is paying for the infrastructure on phase 1 and phase 2. And we try to make it easier for MEDC by splitting off the phase 1 and the phase 2 activities. And we've kind of done that throughout the various sections too. Site prep is pretty simple. It's getting the site to a buildable state. A lot of the costs we have, or they have, excuse me, is the buildings are going to be on helical piles for a soil stability standpoint, and that's just extremely expensive for these size buildings. So that takes up a lot of it, and they're all eligible, obviously, but we do break them out so that it's a little easier for our regulatory agencies to review. Let's see here. Just looking, just a couple activities that I do want to call out that are like a little bit more expensive. The foundation work is about 1.1 million, so that's all the soil structural stuff for both phase 1 and phase 2. And
That's for input or removal and removal?
so we kind of have it separated. So the soil's contaminated across the two sites. So the removal of the bad soil to get it to the grade we need is all in the Eagle eligible side.
Okay.
But then once we get it to the grade we need, then it'll be putting in the helical piers will be the eligible activity. The other big eligible activity in this whole plan you're going to see is the parking structure. So vertical and integrated parking structures are reimbursable activities in core communities, and luckily the city of Manistee is a core community. But the parking structure alone is $9.4 million here. So that's a big chunk of activities, and that it does not have to be a publicly owned infrastructure. But I do believe there's going to be agreement on a certain amount of spots.
There'll be an easement with the developer to reserve a certain number of public spots. So we're working through that, but it's not a publicly owned parking deck. It's gonna be owned by Little River Holdings
Yeah.
or a subsequent.
So
Yeah.
with the agreement, because I know that was one of the things that we talked about a lot before was the parking.
Yep.
Because of that concern for making sure that we have enough parking
Mhm.
to be able to support what's being built down there. You said there's an agreement that's being worked out with the city to reserve a certain number of them?
Yeah, it'll make some of those available to the public.
Do you have any idea? I don't remember what our total number of parking spots was. Was it 94?
No, it's more than that. I mean, the total
I might be
yeah, the
totally
total
making that
number
up.
and the ramp is more than that. It's closer to 200, I think.
Okay, closer to 200. Do you have any idea how many of those
Um,
may end up being reserved as?
I'd have to look back at the draft easement agreement on that, because that hasn't been finalized, because they haven't built the ramp yet, so it's one of those things, but, and I think it fluctuates, if they have a conference there, and it's full of their conference attendees, then there won't be any available for the public, but if they have a slow night and there's some that are available, and they'll be able to park there, so I don't think they're not like cordoning them off and say these are 100% always gonna be available to the public, it's just when it's not being used for hotel activities, then there'll be some that are available, this is how it's gonna kinda work.
That all remain as pay to park, even the ones?
Yeah, it's
all of
everything's,
it?
it's all paid to
Everything's
park.
paid to park in
Yeah.
there, okay.
As I understand it. Now, I don't know if they say, well, we're gonna lease some of these to the residents that live in the apartments, so they're still paying, but it may be a monthly rate or whatever. We don't get into that level of detail with that, so.
Yeah, I just know we had expressed concerns before with the amount of residences down there, plus the hotel.
Yeah, well, all I can say, Megan, is that it exceeds what the zoning requires.
Okay.
So, I mean, they didn't really, I don't think, have to provide very much parking at all, honestly.
Really?
Yeah, but because it's a PUD, they agreed to provide additional parking, and so that's part of what, plus there'll be a little bit of on-street, but it's primarily gonna be in that parking ramp. And there'll be two entrances to it, one from around back and one from River Street. And I believe they're trying to work out a deal with the church property, used to be the Eagles, I think, to have some overflow parking possibly, but I don't know that that's down the road a ways, if need be. I know they're gonna stage materials there when they're building some of the stuff, so.
Good.
And it's, as you can see, it's so expensive to build parking structures.
Yeah. I mean, we desperately need it downtown, especially as we continue to expand.
For sure. And I do know the development team, when they were looking at the size of the parking structure, they do want to be good neighbors with the city, so I do know they built it a little bit bigger. What's nice for the city is the city doesn't have to front the cost to build it.
Yeah.
100%. And obviously, even if it is pay to park, there are times that they can probably turn that off for like festivals and things. And I think kind of this public-private partnership will really help the development team be able to do some of those things too. So, and I know that there's been lots of discussions about the parking structure. So, which is good. It's a great thing to have. One of the other bigger activities I just want to mention is we do have interest built in here capped at 8.6 million. So we have interest at 5% of unreimbursed eligible activities. Now, with federal infrastructure and federal inflation rates, 5% interest is low for what they're going to get, but also the taxpayers don't need to take on the whole burden of it. So when we pulled out the timeline of the whole eligible activity schedule, talking with the DDA, we knew how long they were going to be comfortable with in reimbursement. So we were able to determine what the total amount of tax capture could be during that time period to make sure everyone was okay. And we were able to work with city staff and development team and agreed at this 8.6 million of interest as a cap. So they're not allowed to get more than that as part of the plan. And in theory, it should pay out for the time frame that was acceptable with the DDA and also with city council. So I always like to call out the interest number because that's something people typically have questions at. But we did kind of come to an agreement because I think the calculated interest is probably about twice that, what it will actually be. So, but the TIF would only allow about 8.6 million in there. And that's what they needed in their development pro forma to meet kind of their debt coverage ratio. So there was a lot that went into figuring out that number. The rest of this is pretty standard, how much it costs to put the plan together. And then there's a giant table here. Is the summary of all the activities we talked about, broken out kind of line item by line item. So in theory, we do it to this level of detail, number one, because we have to. But number two, when you see the reimbursement agreement, or the reimbursement package that the development team will be submitting, it will have these same eligible categories here with their budgets, and then city staff and development team will be putting in activities within those buckets. So you can kind of see how the line items break out and how they're actually built out. So this just kind of gives a level of detail. I need to work with the development team about the completion season and year. Those are just kind of our best estimates, but that's kind of one of those things I had mentioned. We're going to craft a little bit before we submit, but
You see those going a little later,
so
28?
I think that's up in the air right now. We're gonna try really hard to have soil removal starting after October 1st. There's not as much as people think they're gonna need to do, at least in this very early phase, but that's all funded under the Eagle Grant loan. And then if things go according to plan and they start put footings in the ground in the spring, then there'll be more soil removals at that point, because they'll have to remove that stuff. But I haven't heard from anybody from the developer that says we're gonna start putting footings in the ground on this date. So I think they're still working through. I mean, part of this is this has to get approved because part of the capital stack for this is, I think, counting on some MEDC financing. And so it's this chicken and the egg thing. That's why I said, Megan, we have to get this approved today because we don't want to delay that. So I'm glad we were able to have a quorum, and I'm glad you were able to make it, to have this conversation, because this is really important. Get this finalized, get it down to state, and then give them the time to look through it and do stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah, and at the same time we're doing all of this, we have work plan number 6 through the Eagle Grant loan, which is going to cover the first part of the soil removal. So we're kind of running these two in tandem with each other, because we know the MEDC and MSF approval and Eagle approval is going to take time for the agreement, but we still have quite a bit of funds left in our Eagle Grant loan, which means we can get them started on activities which council was pretty clear that they wanted to see them get going, and the development team is too. So
Yeah, the city manager sent a letter to Little River Holdings, kind of encouraging them to get going, because and I don't think Little River Holdings has responded back. I think they're drafting a response right now, but I think that's the idea, is after October 1st, which is the start of the state's fiscal year, so it doesn't get kind of caught up in limbo at the year end, because there's a quick turnaround with their excavator contractor, so we want to make sure we can accommodate all of that. And hopefully that'll happen. I think that'll be good. I think the community will be pleased to see that.
they've been looking at a giant flat fence for quite a while.
I know.
We are
Yes, all the time.
Oh, for sure. And it's been a pretty big lift from city staff and everybody to get the Brownfield plan first approved, because the numbers have changed drastically since we've started even a year ago with these documents. One thing to keep in mind too, we talk about the Eagle Grant loan. I just want to make sure you guys are clear. The Eagle Grant activities those are not duplicated in any of these costs. So we're not double dipping in anything here. Those are completely separate. So all of the eligible activities here, we even have an extra $1 million that we're already spending on environmental too. So you can see this is a big project. There's a lot going on, a lot of moving parts, and I really appreciate everyone's flexibility with kind of working through this, because it is important to get this in the queue with MEDC. Yeah, these are just activities, and then honestly, the appendices to these, the first few are tables. Have you guys seen the most recent renderings? I'm pretty sure you have.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the next couple are like renderings. There's the condo hotel. That's good. So condo hotels phase 2, like we talked about, and then there it is, 215 spaces. It's on the finger. Should have known that.
43,000.
So it is really going to be a gateway kind of to the city. So everyone's put a lot of time and effort in, and I know everyone's excited to get going for sure.
I think the word that's been used is transformative, and I think that's an accurate statement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll give a whole different feel as you drive down 31.
Oh, for sure, yep. And especially people have been in Manistee long enough to remember when the old buildings were there too, and not as utilized as they could have been. So these are all TIF tables. They're really, really small, but they're the exact same TIF tables that you guys have seen many times already.
And do I remember correctly, as the projects are closed out and they request reimbursement for TIF, that comes back before us, right? With
So
a
they'll
post-mortem?
submit a package of invoices to the city, and the city and our consultant look at those and go back and forth with the developer to make sure that everything's kosher. Sometimes we deny costs, sometimes we have to get additional paperwork clarification, and then periodically, as the project is being built, we'll bring those to this board. We'll go through them with you. You guys have to approve them. Once they're approved, then the Brownfield administrator takes that over and works with the city finance director, who just happens to be the same person.
Yes.
And, and captures the taxes and then pays those out once a year.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
once a year, okay.
Yeah.
Once a year, and as TIF allows too. That's the
Yeah,
other-
because there may not be enough capture to pay, I mean, there isn't, right? That's why it's a 20-year plan or 30-year plan or whatever, so.
And it's always good to remind BRAs that you guys are not on the hook if the TIF doesn't amateurize the way they say it. So if they don't build what they say and the TIF doesn't generate, they don't get the reimbursement. So you guys aren't on the hook if the TIF comes up short.
Right,
Like
and
that's-
the developer is on the hook regardless of whether this gets built at all to pay off the loan from Eagle. The city actually has a mortgage on the property until that gets paid off, so.
Yeah.
I remember that, yeah.
And that 800,000 is built in the very front end of all of this TIF,
Okay.
along with its interest too. Now, I believe the developer made the first payment, or is making the first payment, correct?
We haven't had the first payment yet,
Okay.
because I don't think there'll be sufficient TIF revenues to pay that off. So we'll have to work through those logistics when we get to that point, but,
Assets have to go into service before you start paying up debt.
what's that?
I said the assets need to be in service before you
Yeah,
start
there won't be
paying off
any,
debt.
there won't be any
Yeah.
capture really. I mean, we'll start capture next year, starting January 1 is the first full year of capture.
Okay.
Yep.
For the TIF.
Yeah, because we just approved it in 24 or in 25, so the TIF won't start till 26.
And then I'll start in 26 and start.
Yeah.
collecting.
Yeah, and the way that the Eagle grant and loan works is you have 5 years to kind of from the first eligible activities to make the first payment. We started with the demo back, it was 2020.
Yeah,
wasn't
I
it?
think so.
Yeah, so that'll be coming up shortly.
And that's gonna be that 1 year, and the developer already understands it, because there's not gonna be enough TIF because they haven't started. They're gonna be responsible for the first payment for that.
Okay.
So, and that's built into the development agreement that was approved many a moon ago.
Yes.
The Brownfield plan is the exact same thing that you guys already you approved once. And really it summarizes the Act 301 work plan just in less amount of details as the activities. The rest, there's a huge document about vapor intrusion mitigation systems. Happy to talk about how they're going to be designed if you want to. But what I can tell you in a quick summary is because of the high groundwater here, and in particular with the condo hotel, there's very specific vapor measures that have to be put in because the water is going to be essentially right underneath the floor. So we have to do essentially waterproofing and mitigation at the same time. So each building has a different mitigation measure, and that's why the document is so long.
Is that something that you can send to us also, just, you know,
Yeah, it's in the document.
it's in this or in?
It's in the Act 3-1 work plan. It's
Okay.
why this thing is like 700
That's why I had to
pages.
put a
Oh.
link, yeah, because I can't email a 200
And I can't either.
document.
All that is in here, yeah, I'm
It
just
is,
curious
yeah.
on some of that myself, so.
Yeah, and just so you guys know, with all the environmental activities, that is Eagle's responsibility. You guys are just saying, because they understand you guys aren't the regulatory body. They have to approve all those systems before they'll approve the tax capture.
I just think as a, you know, as a member of this board, it's helpful.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear it's all in here, so,
Yep.
because it's helpful when we get questions from the public to be able to say, you know, we were provided with that information.
Yep.
Eagle is overseeing it, and these are the measures that are being taken to make sure.
There'll be a test on all these tables later.
No.
Now,
I can't
what's,
read 'em.
what is being shown in red and yellow there? Ed?
Yeah,
here?
so
No, and back in, where,
it's the tables.
in the tables, yeah.
Yeah.
So what's being shown here is part of the Eagle grant loan. We spent a significant amount of money doing further soil, groundwater, and soil investigation, or soil gas investigation across all the parcels, looking at what are different exposure pathways for. So like for metals, we look at like direct contact as an example. Our volatiles, where the dry cleaner was, we look at vapor intrusion. So what you're seeing, the yellow shaded on these tables, are exceedances of criteria of direct contact in drinking water. They have the blue exceeds our groundwater surface water interface, and then the red outlines exceed the vapor intrusion levels. So really it's summarizing the data in terms of what it exceeds.
So this is the measured data and therefore the reason for mitigation.
Correct, yep. So really this supplemental investigation document is the level of data we needed to prove to Eagle that we needed to put in the measures.
Thank you.
Yep. Yep. So this was done by MCNE as part of the Eagle grant and loan, and then Fishback as part of the grant and loan did the vapor the vapor design. Now I have a team that did that. That wasn't me, but I do know it because I do it every day. But yeah, these tables are just summarizing the contamination on each of the parcels. So then we take that information to design the mitigation system, but then we also take the data from here to determine how much soil needs to be removed and is it clean, does it have to go to the landfill. So as we look at all that information, this summary report shows all the contamination out there. And there was a lot of money that was spent in this, and it does a pretty good job of summarizing all the data. If you look at the map, it looks like Swiss cheese. And it goes parcel by parcel too, so. But yes, and all these are in the Act 3-1 work plan if you ever want to look them over. And obviously, if
In all my spare time.
all your spare time to read a very exciting 750-page document. It's thrilling. Yeah, so like this is the mitigation system start of it on page 230. So the mitigation system's a 500-page document. Wow, yeah. I would not encourage you to read the whole thing. I read the text. But really what it is, we know exactly what Eagle's gonna ask for, and that's why things are built the way it is, so. And I do believe they've reviewed it one time already, made comments, and this is the second revision to that, so we should be getting pretty close.
I guess the only question, the state must have some requirement for materials when you're removing them that are contaminated. And is that that is part of that 500?
Kind of.
That'll be addressed in Work Plan 6, right?
So this is the other part. We have the two different funding mechanisms. Our Eagle grant and loan is paying for the contaminated soil removal, a bulk of it.
Yeah.
So the detail that you're looking for is going to be in Work Plan 6,
Okay.
which I'm sure Ed, you can make available. It's
Yeah,
a public
I mean,
document.
it's a city grant, so it wasn't a brownfield grant, so we've just been managing that as a city thing, but we can share any of that information. But that's where Aaron from Eagle and his team looks at that, because they're the ones that are managing the grant loan from the state side, and they have to be comfortable with, all of that. And most of that is going to they didn't have to take it to a special landfill, right?
No,
They're taking
so-
it to this one.
It is all contaminated, but it is all non-hazardous.
Yeah.
Non-hazardous, so it's a big differentiation. Hazardous waste has to go to a special haz landfill. The closest one is in Detroit.
Okay.
But this is just considered contaminated non-haz, which means it can go to a type 2. So I think they're taking it to,
Republic, just outside of town here, yeah.
yep, that's the nearest one.
Harland,
Yeah, and so the development team actually already has all their waste manifest approval for the contaminated soil. Work Plan 6 that we're in the process of finalizing here in the next day goes through the specifics of how much soil is gonna be removed, where it's gonna be removed, and kind of the sampling to prove that it's been removed.
Right.
So that'll be more in Work Plan 6. There's a little bit of spillover of contaminated soil, but the bulk of that is approved in Work Plan 6, which is another really long document, not this long. So, but yeah, like I said, that is a city grant, which means those are submitted to Eagle, the work plan, so they are public information too. So we can get all those. And I've seen the first draft of it. I have to review another draft of Work Plan 6, but my hope is to get that over to Eagle this week.
so Kirk, you've worked on a lot of brownfield plans, not just in Manistee, but all across the state. Just kind of, spitballing it, how does this project compare in scope and complexity to some of the ones you've worked on?
Yeah, so in terms of scope, it's on the bigger side. We're looking at 90 million investment. In complexity, it's one of the more complex ones. In particular, we're looking at a downtown city with high groundwater, 3 essentially types of contamination. We have the heavy metals and fill, we had old gas stations, and a dry cleaner, which doesn't help. All in this one tiny section. So the development team has really done a good job of looking parcel by parcel about what is needed. But from a complexity standpoint, this is one of the most complex vapor designs I've seen, because every building is different. Normally we design them pretty standard. You have one slab that it goes across the property and we fix it. I do a lot of vapor mitigation, so I was helping our team with this one, and some of the things they're having to do in particular with the elevator shaft in the condo building is a combination water barrier and vapor barrier, which isn't done very often. So this is a complex one. It truly is transformational. A lot of these Act 31 work plans are smaller and less complex, so you don't have the same level of detail. But this is, in the last 5 years I've been at Fishbeck, this is the second biggest. The Adelaide Point one was a very big project. So that one had a lot. That was building a whole marina and a whole road network. But this one has more complexity in the building design, without a doubt. So I do give a lot of kudos to the development team. They have made this process helpful for us to kind of summarize and put it together. And Ed obviously always does a really good job of helping with that too. So this is one of the more complex ones you're probably going to see. So, and I think Eagle realizes that, MSF realizes that. I think it will be a really good boon once we get there. I think it took a lot of years to get to this point, and we're ready to finally go, so everyone's kind of on pins and needles. But I do think starting the soil removal this year will be really helpful, just in the general appearance of things and showing movement, because that's always been the question is, when is it going to happen?
Yeah.
When's the funding going to come in?
Public perception.
The public perception.
For sure. This is the second development team that's taken a stab at it since the building got torn down. So we are there. It is complex. It's, like I said, it's probably the second most complex one I've done in all my years of doing Brownfield. I would say. Vapor design, the most complex. That's without a doubt. But fun, it'll be a fun one to see. It fixes all the issues. We have a lot of funding sources, which is really exciting for this too. So a lot of moving parts, and everyone having the flexibility to come to meetings and probably see the same thing. I don't even know how many times you guys have probably seen and talked about the gateway, but I will say once we get the work plan submitted this week, I do think we'll be able to start running October. I do. We're going to push Eagle to push that along because we understand the community wants to. So Fishbeck can leverage the Eagle a little bit on that part of it. So yeah, but yeah, all those documents are in there, and I am happy at any point outside of a meeting to talk through with anybody if you want to talk specifically about anything. But yeah, that's kind of a nutshell what the Act 321 work plan is. So we're getting there. This is kind of the last approval from the Brownfield side is going to be the Act 321. And then all of that is going to be back end stuff. And TIF reimbursement until probably none of us are doing TIF anymore. Well, maybe me, I don't know. We'll see. DDA's already fully on board with everything. They're good. And that's the other level of complexity.
DD.
Oh, DDA, Downtown Development Authority. So that's the other complexity of this whole thing is not only are we talking a transformational project in the city, we have to get city council buy-in, we have to get BRA buy-in, we have to get the DDA to sign in too. So
Yeah, planning commission.
we've had a lot of meetings.
Yeah, that's for sure. Anybody have any other questions of Kirk or myself? Okay, so I think at this point, we just need to vote on that motion as Shelley read it previously.
You want to read it? It's that part of it.
All right.
Do you want to put it up for us then? Thank you.
So at this point, the commission can entertain a motion as read.
Do you want me to read it out loud?
No, I already read it.
Okay. You're just telling me what.
I was just showing you.
Yes, I'm gonna aware. Thank you. I will second that motion.
Who made it?
Oh, did Shelley make it?
No, I said I would entertain one.
Oh, okay.
Make the motion.
I was gonna motion. You'll make the motion. I'll make the second.
So Nick, you made it?
Pardon me?
Did
No.
Nick or Kate make the motion? Kate made the motion? Thank you.
So all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye. Can we move on to staff reports?
All right, I'll just keep it short. Obviously, we just talked about Gateway. 141 Washington Street, you've seen, well, you probably haven't seen because you can't drive down Washington Street, but they've been working on that building, and they're having some kind of a grand kickoff ribbon cutting coming up here shortly. So I unfortunately won't be able to make that, but that's exciting. That's moving ahead. So all good there. And then obviously 9199 Arthur Street, the restaurant opened up. They're renting little round boats. I think there's a lot of buzz and excitement about that. So I have not been there yet, but I encourage everybody to go down and check it out. And I think that'll be really good for the community. I've got to get with them to get their reimbursements coming in now on invoices and stuff. So we got to sort through that. But that'll probably be the first ones that you'll see in a while. The last ones that went through were the Hampton Inn, and that's been a bit, but this will be a good practice run once those start coming in for the Gateway one and also for 141 Washington Street. So that's all I've really got on those items, but it's exciting. I don't think we've ever had like 3 active big brownfield projects ever at one time. It just goes to show the developer interest in the community, and I think that's, even with the higher interest rates, is still sustaining. So that's really good news.
Next meeting date, proposed Tuesday, October 14th at 4 p.m.
Yeah, and again, if we have something, we'll have it. If not, I'll let you know. But I do appreciate you keeping that on your calendar, so.
The 14th?
Yeah.
And then members' discussion. If anybody has any items they want to discuss.
At this time?
Okay. Again, public comment on agenda items.
Well,
from
that's
our
supposed to say
regular-
public comments, not on agenda items.
Not
but-
on, okay. We don't have any public, so
No.
they don't have any comments on the non-agenda items. And I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
All right.